It's another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. You can join the conversation over the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. It appears on the screen in real time. We try to work it into the conversation. And, of course, WCRN, like thousands of other radio stations, stream on the TuneIn app. So you can take us anywhere, in and out of the car. You don't have to miss a thing. And speaking of not missing a thing, we have that fantastic replay link on WCRNradio.com. Right after the show goes off the air, it's live. Within a minute or two, you can go to the replay link, look it up by host or by the show, and you can listen to it again. Just click play. You can even download it to an MP3 file and play it back later. So that's a fantastic feature that we have here at AM 830 WCRN. I stream my shows on my social media platforms. You can follow that at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter. I also stream to Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and we do stream to Rumble Live. We don't post it later. If you go to the Joe Mangiacotti channel on Rumble, we are streaming this show right now. We've got a great show ahead of you. Always a lot of things to jam in, pack in this hour. But we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening around the country. We have a very special guest coming up as well. And we're just a few days out of National Day of Remembrance, or Remembrance Day, about the Holocaust. So we're going to have Andy Laszlo. He's going to talk about his father's book. But first up, a USAID taxpayer-funded agency that's supposed to serve American interests abroad is being exposed for what it really is, a partisan stronghold. A stunning 97% of political donations from its employees went to Democrats. And now the agency is being folded into the State Department under newly minted Secretary of State Marco Rubio. So we're going to unpack that fallout a little bit, why Trump's administration says this was necessary. And this is crazy, the attitude of these bureaucrats, that they don't have to answer to anybody. They work for themselves. It's really crazy, guys. Then the federal government is shrinking fast. Trump's aggressive buyout program has already convinced 20,000 federal workers to take that deal. But that's just the beginning. We'll talk about what this means for government efficiency, accountability, and most importantly, your tax dollars. And in Florida, a shocking case of voter fraud has been uncovered. So an illegal immigrant wanted for horrific crimes in New Jersey managed to steal an American's identity, register a vote, cast a ballot, and even obtain a firearm. Now, if that doesn't raise some red flags about election security, I don't know what will. So we've got a fantastic guest joining us, as I said, Andrew Laszlo, to talk about his father's book, A Footnote in History. I have put some information about that on my Facebook page. There's even a QR code there that will bring you right to the book on Amazon, so check that out if you can. But like I said, we've got a lot to talk about today. This USAID, right, which is the United States Agency for International Development, it's a slush fund out of taxpayers' dollars. That money is being pumped into some of the most ridiculous things. You know, LGBTQ comic books in South America, drag shows in the Middle East, things that you say, what does that have to do with it? Now, don't get me wrong. China's out there pumping money into other countries, right? Developing ports. Oh, we'll help you pay for this port, but we get to have our own port too, by the way. And what do you think part of the issue is with the Panama Canal? There are two Chinese installations at either end of the canal. And the Chinese companies that are help managing this. This is what the whole issue is about. That's a very strategically important canal for us. It controls the waterways in that part of the world. So the USAID, responsible for administering billions in foreign aid, of course, it's come under scrutiny. And this is the thing that kills me when the left gets all upset. Trump's doing everything he said he was going to do in the campaign. Don't act surprised. Don't clutch the pearls, guys. He was elected overwhelmingly by popular vote and electoral vote to do exactly these things. But it's just not for spending, but also for political affiliations of its employees. So the data that has been pulled from Open Secrets reveals that overwhelming 97% of political donations from those employees at USAID during the 2024 election cycle went to Democrats. Of the $406,790 in total contributions, $241,079 was directed to Kamala Harris. Donald Trump received, get this, $999. Just couldn't give him that extra dollar. $999, less than a quarter of 1%, folks. So this stark disparity raises a lot of concerns about political bias within taxpayer-funded agency, particularly one with a $50 billion annual budget. So Donald Trump has pointed to these figures as proof that USAID was operating as a partisan stronghold under the Biden administration. Trump described USAID leadership as radical left lunatics. Pretty normal sounding from Trump. And along with Elon Musk, now involved in cutting federal waste through the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, has argued that the agency is just beyond repair. So he moved it under Rubio. Restructuring, right? And left is going crazy. In part of the broader government reform, Trump administration just rolled that in to the State Department. So now Rubio is in charge. Ted, you wanted to say something? Yeah.
Well, I know that the narrative says that it was a separate agency, but in fact, it's part of the State Department. USAID was configured after World War II in order to guarantee the use of taxpayer money for development of our interests internationally.
And that's the key part. First of all, by the way, USAID was created by a former president. So now they're trying saying that this president, because it's Trump, doesn't have the authority and can't do this, but it's a presidential agency if you really get down to it. And it is under the State Department, as Ted was pointing out. The purpose of this is supposed to be aid that will further or solidify the interests of the United States. Just like China does, okay? Just like other major power countries do. So now it's rolled in there. And in Rubio, he's been a long critic of the agency. Joni Ernst has. There's even a report out there that when she started asking questions a long time ago, she started getting threats and told to stop asking those. That's none of her business. A sitting member of Congress. Stop asking questions about where taxpayer money's going. Do you believe this? So now Rubio's saying this was all about finding waste and seeing what we're spending money. Now it's about insubordination. It's about the lack of transparency. He's arguing that USAID failed to properly account for taxpayer dollars because there is the missing money, but the money that's accounted for, you got to say, where do you get off thinking this is a good use of taxpayer money? So his goal is to realign the agency's operations with American foreign policy priorities, which, of course, was the purpose of this fund anyway, while shutting down programs deemed ineffective or misaligned with our national interests. Since Trump returned to office, thousands of USAID employees have been laid off. Several programs have been shuttered. And just yesterday, the USAID workers were blocked from entering agency headquarters in D.C. A law enforcement sealed off the building and its website went offline. Employees also reported being locked out of their computer system. Well, naturally. Nobody wants you shifting anything or deleting anything. What do you, duh. I mean, God. Democratic lawmakers have fiercely opposed these actions. No kidding. Arguing that dismantling USAID is illegal. How can it be illegal? It's a government agency created by a former president administration under the executive branch. Senator Van Hollen, he's a Democrat from Maryland, he accused Musk of trying to play dictator. You knew that's coming. You know it's already come, right? That's no big thing. And shutting down an essential agency that is abusing its power and money. Brian Schwartz, a Democrat, I forget where he's from right now, went as far as to threaten a blanket hold on all of Trump's State Department nominees until the administration ceases its efforts against USAID. So in other words, you're not going to get any ambassadors or anything over at State Department. I'm going to take my ball and go home. Grow up. Now, the controversy surrounding USAID highlights a larger issue, I should say, of entrenched political bias within federal agencies. See, government employees, particularly in policy-driven departments, hold immense influence over how taxpayer dollars are allocated. Now, I have always, if you've listened to this show at all over the last 20 years, one of my pet peeves is the fact that there is this massive bureaucratic army out there of unelected officials that seem to have autonomy and cannot be fired or questioned. And they make policies and rules that have the effect of law. And now you've got these jamokes who are power hungry and they have access directly into your pocket and can spend your money. When political contributions from agency staffers overwhelmingly favor one party, it raises questions about impartiality and the ability of such agencies to serve the interest of all Americans, folks. At its core, the debate over USAID is not for just the foreign aid. It's about accountability, transparency, and whether government institutions should be free from political partisanship. But guys, we are at that point that we do have to take our first break here on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. We're going to be joined by a very special guest on the other side. As I said, Andy Laszlo will join us about his dad's book. Hey, back in 2 and 10, folks.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. The MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Looking for a fuel and food stop that truly stands out? Experience the Yatco difference. At Yatco, we're dedicated to bringing you the best customer service, the highest quality products, and a commitment to making your life on the go easier. Yatco has 15 convenient locations across central Massachusetts, and now our newest spot at 75 Quonsigamut Ave in Worcester. Yatco, where every stop keeps you going.
Polar Park is the place to play, so treat yourself to a private suite at the best ballpark in AAA. Suite rentals are the best way to enjoy a fully catered and climate-controlled experience at the park. Whether you choose to watch the game from inside of the suite or out in your seats, it's the ultimate experience for a special occasion. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888 to reserve your suite today.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second segment of the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you, we do stream 24/7 on the TuneIn app. We have the replay link, and of course, I do stream the show on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, MANGI, AMNA. Yeah, we'll try that one again, MANGI, Joe Mangi Show. And it does stream on X, Facebook, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and live on Rumble. But today we have the privilege of welcoming a guest whose family story is one of unimaginable tragedy, incredible resilience, and ultimate triumph. Andy Laszlo is here to share the story of his father, Andrew Laszlo, a man who not only survived one of the darkest chapters in human history, but went on to become an acclaimed Hollywood cinematographer, an American success story, and a testament to the enduring human spirit. Andrew Laszlo was born in Hungary in 1926, a promising young athlete, destined for Olympic greatness, by the way, until history intervened. 1944, when the Nazis invaded Hungary, his world was shattered. His family was forced into the Papa Ghetto, and from there, the horrors of the Holocaust unfolded. He was sent to labor camps. His mother was deported to Auschwitz, where she perished. His father, a World War I hero, endured multiple concentration camps, including Auschwitz and Buchenwald, before succumbing to typhus just before the war ended. Andrew himself, he escaped once, only to be recaptured and sent to Bergen-Belsen, where he was imprisoned at the same time as Anne Frank. He witnessed unimaginable suffering, including that of his own brother. The final days of the war.
Hi, John. Joe.
Sorry? Oh, the final days of, including that of his own brother. Okay, so the final days of the war, Andrew was transported to Theresienstadt, where he briefly reunited with his father before losing him as well. When liberation finally came, he was truly alone, yet he survived. With nothing but his will to live, Andrew made his way to America. Arriving in New York in 1947, penniless and unable to speak English, but he was determined to build a new life. And build he did. He rose through the ranks of the film industry, becoming a world-class cinematographer behind films like The Warriors, Shogun, and Rambo First Blood. His talent put him in the company of Hollywood legends, including Barbra Streisand. She praised him in his work in her recent memoir. So for 50 years, he buried his past, determined to move forward without looking back. But on the anniversary of his arrival in America, something changed. His memoir, Footnote to History, it was completed, ensuring that his story and the stories of those who did not survive would not be forgotten. Today, we are honored to have his son, Andy Laszlo Jr., with us. Andy has carried his father's legacy forward, sharing his story so that future generations may never forget. He himself has a distinguished career in finance, retiring as an executive director at Morgan Stanley. He also has deep roots in Montana, where his great-grandfather helped establish one of the state's first Jewish congregations. As we look to Holocaust Remembrance Day past and to come, Yom HaShoah, and I'm going to ask Andy if I pronounced that right, it's more important than ever to reflect on the lessons of history and the resilience of the human spirit. So without further ado, let's welcome Andy Laszlo to the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Andy, it's an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you, Joe. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate being able to share my father's story.
It's a fascinating story, and I hope I did the introduction a little justice there. And this, what I was amazed when this first came to my attention was that your father, the horrific and part of his chapter of his life, that in what he witnessed, he never talked about it, including your mother. He didn't share this until the book came out. Can you tell me a little bit? I mean, growing up, not knowing this, and how did you come to find out? And was he writing this memoir, this book, the whole time as you guys were growing up?
Well, 50 years to the date that he stepped foot in New York Harbor, a FedEx package arrived at our door, and it contained a book that he had bound himself and written over 10 years, which was the memoir of his life that we never knew. And he had done very well keeping it a secret from our mother, from us. We never suspected. And the reason he kept it a secret is unclear. It could have been that he just didn't want to go back and think about his past. It could have been that he didn't want his life to define ours. And it could have been that he wanted us to have the carefree youth that he didn't have. When he did step on the boat to come to America, he swore that he would never think or talk about his past again. And yet, as he got older, he felt that keeping the story alive and letting us know his legacy was more important than him having to experience the pain again.
And on that note, because many people who survived and are survivors, they haven't been able to find a normal life, for lack of better way of framing that or saying that, Andy, is it was with them and it affected their life. But it sounds like your father hid it so well and was able to smile and kind of, okay, that's there. This is a new chapter. As you said, when he stepped foot in New York, he decided to leave that world behind him. But it sounds like this might have been a little therapeutic for him to also write this book and to make sure that he did whatever he could to make sure that, again, never forget.
Well, for many of the survivors and liberators, it was just so horrible that they couldn't get past it. I mean, the guilt, the depression, the trauma followed them for the rest of their lives. But my father believed that at some point in everybody's life, you have to get past the bad things that you've encountered, and your life is up to you and not anybody else. His father advised him that bitterness and self-pity were the medicines of the weak. And that was what he did. He would never let the actions of others define
Andy, repeat that again. What was that phrase?
His father, one of the two very important pieces of advice his father gave him was that bitterness and self-pity were the medicines of the weak.
Okay. That's good. What was the other?
Well, the last piece of advice his father gave him was to shave every day. And this is when he was headed off to the labor camps. And even though he didn't understand it, he followed it faithfully.
Right.
He shaved at the labor camp, at Bergen-Belsen, etc. And when he shaved, he felt strong. The Nazis were trying to degrade him. And one day at Bergen-Belsen, when he was down to 90 pounds, he had an epiphany. He shaved, and all of a sudden, he felt in control and that no one could break his spirit. And then he knew he was going to survive. And at last, he understood his father's advice. It's
amazing, that one simple act that most of us do every day. But I get that because...
Well,
Go ahead.
It was a metaphor, Joe.
Yeah.
When you're persecuted or bullied, you need to do something
right.
to maintain your humanity. And if you do, you can be beaten and you can be killed, but you can never be defeated.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And he voyaged to America on the Ernie Pyle?
Yes, the SS Ernie Pyle. And that's when America became the land of his dreams, because he realized that hundreds of thousands of Americans had risked and gave their lives to save his when it wasn't their homeland that was being threatened.
Yeah. I want to remind listeners we're talking with Andy Laszlo. His father, Andrew Laszlo Sr., survived Nazi Germany, survived the camps, came to America penniless, built a great career in film and entertainment industry, cinematographer. And can I say it, secretly was writing a book. I mean, he hid his past and his pain from his wife and children till he was ready to share his history so that we will never forget. And before we got to go to a break, and I just want to remind folks, I have put some of Andrew's information on my Facebook page, Joe Mangiacotti Show Facebook page. There's also a QR code I put up there that will just take you to Amazon if you'd like to get Footnote in History from Amazon. Is that the best place, Andy, to get it, or is there any other site that they should go to?
You can get it at Amazon. That's the easiest, Footnote History, and that is the best place to get it.
All right. So the QR code's up there. If you're on Amazon, you can search for that. But you were telling me when we talked before that as a teenager, and folks, as I said in the opening, he was headed to the Olympics, and he was it skating? What were the sports or the competition he was great in?
He was on the Hungarian junior national team in figure skating and saber fencing. And he was being groomed for the Olympics.
There you go. But you had said something that as a teenager, before the camps came, he saw this coming and hid stashes all over the place and sewed food and medicine into his clothing and knapsack. Why? How did he know this?
Well, this is what distinguished him and the other people that did survive. When he was 18, there was no playbook. He started doing things that nobody else had thought of. When they were moved from their beautiful home to the Papa Ghetto and put in a one-room apartment with several other families, he made several trips to his home at night, and with the possessions he couldn't take, like medicine, warm clothing, food, tools, and other things, he hid them in caches around the countryside, and those caches helped him survive later in the story. But for those of you who have young children, he was only 18 years old when he started to do this, and very few people thought of
including the adults.
Including the adults. And he was a rebel. On his last trip to his home, he took a sledgehammer and smashed all their china, because if he couldn't eat off it, the Nazis wouldn't either.
Sure. I absolutely get that. Andy, can you hold on to the break? Sure. And of course, when you read back about the what was going on then, a lot of the adults actually refused to believe what was coming, even though it was in front of them. It's amazing. But we do have to take our mid-show break here on the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Our guest today is Andy Laszlo, his father's book, Footnote to History, about his survival from the camps in Nazi Germany. Stick with us, folks. We're going to come back on the other side, so I'll be back in 2 and 10, folks.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. Here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. We've got more melting today with highs around 40 degrees. We're going to keep it partly cloudy. There might be one or two flurries out there, but really no price to pay for that. Tomorrow is going to be freezing cold with highs in the upper 20s, but sunny. And then Thursday, we get into a wintry mix. We are expecting some accumulation, a few inches of snow, and the potential of some ice as well before any flip to rain. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. You can hear Boston 25 live for the Morning Drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central 830 WCRN.
Here we go again.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. The MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. Reminding you, you can take us anywhere. We're streaming live, as thousands of radio stations do, on the TuneIn app. You can always check out WCRNradio.com and check out our replay link. So if you miss any show during the day, you can listen to it at any time. You can even download it in an MP3 file for playback later. Our phone line is 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Andy Laszlo is my guest today. His father wrote an incredible book, Footnote to History. It's about his life and growing up in Hungary and then having to survive Nazi Germany in the camps. And the book, we're going to talk about the book, Andy, but I do want to ask you one thing. When you go to, and there is a QR code on my Facebook page, folks, so it's easy if you want to do that, or just go to Amazon. And does the book come in paperback, hardcover? Can I get it in Kindle? Is it of all of the available?
You can get it in all three, and it is the #1 new release in Holocaust books on Amazon.
Oh, so it's selling well, apparently. Then, good for that. But let me ask you this, Andy. Now, why is this book relevant today? When did he write this? How long ago did he actually write this? When that arrived 50 years to the date, the package arrived in the door and he wrote the book. How long ago was that?
So it arrived on January 17th, 1997. He had been working on it for 10 years. We had questioned him about his past a little bit, and he had concocted a story, but he decided that he needed to share his legacy before, as he put it, memories fade.
And why is it relevant today, now?
Well, because a lot of people don't know anything about the Holocaust. It was 1945, and a lot of people who were born after that, way after that, young people don't understand that unless you protect your freedom, unless you speak out against evil, evil can happen again. So it's up to all of us to make sure it doesn't. And I publish a picture in my lecture series, which is the open pit grave at Bergen-Belsen, where people were dumped alive and dead. And what I say there is that my father wasn't in the picture, but in the future, it could be you, me, or anyone else who's deemed undesirable. So we have to protect our freedoms, because the open pit at Belsen is the end game when government has too much power.
Yeah, absolutely. If your father had been alive in recent, today, in recent years, how would he have taken and how would he have explained to you, or what would he have thought when we've seen anti-Semitism and we saw, Jewish students chased into libraries at universities and physically assaulted? What would he say about seeing that in the 2020s after living through Nazi Germany?
So it's interesting, Joe. I don't know how he would have felt. I mean, he sometimes was very surprising because he had kind of put a lot of that past him. He was a strong supporter of Israel. And after he shared his story, he was a prominent member of the Holocaust community. But I wouldn't put words in his mouth,
Sure.
and I don't know how exactly he would have felt. I do know that my feeling, and maybe he would
that's
have
my
felt
next
the
question,
same.
Andy, is how have you felt over the last few years?
So uncomfortable, because it tells me that a problem that's been around for 3,000 years is not going to go away. When we visited Hungary with my father and looked at all of the places he wrote about in the book, it was Holocaust Remembrance Week, and I remarked to him that I was glad Hungary was trying to take responsibility and do something right, And he took me around the corner and showed me something I hadn't seen, which was a fresh swastika painted on a wall. And he told me that I must always be vigilant because the hatred will never go away. I share the story to try to make people aware, so maybe it's less likely to happen again. And my hope is that good people will try to understand and respect others and possibly try to find some peace in a 3,000-year-old conflict. That's what I see my role as.
And I know we talked about this a little bit off air. There are deniers, and there are just simply people who aren't educated. They don't know the history. They haven't been taught the history. They haven't seen the actual photographs and film from when liberation came. And they have been preserved. I mean, the Holocaust Museum doesn't, of course, but we also, I mean, our own government documented this. But there are actually people, and I've come across these young people, and I don't mean young teenagers or kids. I'm talking 20, 30-year-olds who really don't understand what the reference to Nazi Germany is or concentration camps. And I'm a little dumbfounded at that, Andy.
Well, Eisenhower ordered his photographers in every camp liberation to take photos and film, because he said it was so horrific that without the film, no one would believe this ever happened. And I mean, this wasn't just, a small isolated incident. I mean, this was, as my father's words, piles of naked corpses being put together like cordwood in front of barracks. People like my father, who was over 6 foot tall, who dropped to 90 pounds. And yet, in terrible times, sometimes beautiful stories are born. My father, even when he was starving, shared his daily potato with a pregnant woman, and he thinks the child was born alive, even though he didn't find out if it survived the camp. So there were stories of humanity. And when I tell the story, I try not to shock people as much as to give them a ray of hope that, goodness can never be defeated by evil.
Absolutely. I don't want to run out of time before I ask you, because he escaped a camp and he was recaptured. But how did he escape a labor camp? I mean, you could probably 90 pounds, a 6-foot man at 90 pounds. Did he have the strength? How did he escape?
Well, so there were two things. One thing that you need to know is when he was at the labor camp building railroad tracks for the German army, at night when no one was looking, he poured sand in all of the gearboxes so the trains would seize. But how did he escape? He had built a special knapsack, again, before the war started, that had hidden compartments for food and tools and money and medicine. And he carried this with him, ready to go at all times. When the Allies bombed the camp and everyone else panicked, he grabbed his sack and ran away to the forest. And those who didn't have a knapsack, who weren't prepared, stayed and worked until they were too weak to work, and then they were murdered. When he was running away, he got hit by shrapnel that went through his leg. He was able to pull out an iron rod from his calf. He treated it with iodine from his pack and sutured it with his sewing kit that he also had hidden.
Jeez.
Again, he was prepared for almost everything, and that went with his instinct and strong will.
I got to tell you, Andy, this needs to be made into a movie. It's absolutely amazing. Are you good with taking a call from a listener?
I absolutely am.
Sure. Let's go to the phones. Dan has been holding, and Dan would like to talk. So, Ted, could you bring Dan on? And we'll take Dan. Welcome. You're on with Andrew and myself.
Yes. And history tells us everything we need to know. I think Trump talks about the Panama Canal. How 38,000 people. I think that's the number. 38,000 people died. Americans died building it. So it's very important. History is very, very important. Or even with these fake trade wars that are going on. Trump talks about the that we need to return to a system that made the United States richer and more powerful than ever before. And that was when the United States from 1870 to 1913 was funded all on tariffs. And that's the richest period in history of the United States.
Sure.
So,
Dan,
you know,
have you been listening to Andrew's story and the story of his dad? Do you have anything in particular about that you'd like to add or ask Andrew?
well, I'm not so much on the. I mean, obviously, the Nazis was a bad thing. Obviously, it was very bad.
Absolutely.
I'm not a big. I don't go that far. It's not something I really.
No, I get it. It's not something that you have a lot of knowledge or history, which is probably a great reason to pick up the book. And I'm certainly going to take a read as well, Andy, because as much as I've read about it and learned about it, your father's particular story just is amazing. And I'm still amazed at an 18-year-old having the foresight to do that prep work. And it, of course, obviously, it saved his life.
Well, and even to figure out where to go. I mean, America was the land that he figured out was a land of opportunity and rebirth. And, that's where he wanted to go, and that's where he did go. And when he got there, he had $2 in his pocket and couldn't speak English. He learned to speak English by sitting in a movie theater and watching the same movie over and over again. He learned photography by being drafted into the U.S. Army and joining the Signal Corps. And rather than feel sorry for himself, he was able to just move ahead. And by the time he was done, he was one of the more famous cinematographers in Hollywood.
And he got to hang around with Sly Stallone. Think about that.
He had an incident with Sly on
yeah?
the making of Rambo. They were filming the cave scene, which many of you have seen. And my father decided to light it with just a gas lamp. And Stallone didn't like it. He came to my father after seeing the dailies, and he said, "Andy, they can't see my face." And my father told him not to worry, but Stallone said, "Well, I'm the star, and they can't see my face." And my father said, "Don't worry, everybody knows who you are." And that scene became famous and is still copied by many cinematographers.
There you go. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. I'll roll the information on your book, but we're against the clock. Thank you, Andrew, and I look forward to the read.
Thank you, Joe. It was my pleasure.
All right, folks. We will be back for a fourth and final segment after this break. Back in 2 and 10.
It's hard to figure out on your own. But MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Hi, this is Phil George, the biochemist from Wellness Wave Radio. I don't recommend anyone that I don't do business with myself, so I'm glad that I found Doug at Meineke Car Center in Worcester. Since Meineke is a national company, the warranty will be honored by other Meineke shops nationwide. Just call 774-530-9009 or schedule an appointment online. Meineke, 661 Park Avenue, Worcester, keeping your wheels on the road.
Making Money Last is moving to a new time slot right here on WCRN. Beginning Monday, January 27th, the show will be heard from 6 to 7 p.m. immediately following the Howie Carr Show. We'll take you from Capitol Hill to America's capital markets. Just imagine conservative common sense politics followed by conservative common sense retirement planning strategies. So listen to me, Jerry Doherty, on Making Money Last at our new time, Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. and live better in retirement.
All right, folks, welcome back for the fourth and final segment here in the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN. You can still join the conversation for the remainder of the hour, next 13 minutes or so, at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. A reminder that Andy Laszlo's father's book, Footnote to History, is available on Amazon. I did put a QR code on my Facebook page, but just go to Amazon. You can search it. And it just sounds like a fascinating book, and what his father was able to do in preparation and what he saw coming when so many adults at that time were refusing to believe what was happening. And, you know, the juxtaposition between what we know happened then, what we saw, and what we still see today with anti-Semitism in the treatment. And the, you know, I've talked about this, of course we have it in the show, River to the Sea. You've got these idiots who don't even understand the meaning of that phrase. They don't understand what they're asking for, what they're proposing, what they're a proponent of. It's absolutely amazing. So take a look at the book if you can.
You know, Joe, one of the things that my family, my culture learned from World War II is that in society, whether it's a Jewish community, a Christian community, a Muslim community, there are sectors of the community that aren't willing to face what's happening and to prepare themselves.
Yeah.
Now, we used to joke in the family on my wife's side, her great-grandmother's name was Wargen. And we used to joke that they were the wrong kind of Jews because they enjoyed killing people that were trying to kill them. But
that's called Mossad, isn't it?
Most of the people, I'm sorry, I cannot comment in that in any way. But most of the people at that time were reluctant because you're right, Joe. They wouldn't believe, they couldn't believe.
They couldn't comprehend that this
denial.
would be allowed to be happened, or that a government could pull this off. And
here we are again.
Here we are again. And I don't know. I mean, look at this attitude of the USAID, thinking that they're just above any kind of questioning. And they had the policy, by the way, that they didn't deny anything. So now, yes, Elon Musk, who is an employee now, technically an employee of the government, but because it's Elon, they don't want him to be able to have this because he's finding this waste. But they wanted to say, no, we decide. Now, they had the policy in place that they didn't deny anything, which meant we cut checks or transferred money, American taxpayers' money, to terrorist organizations, to Hamas, to programs that just make no sense for America's interest. Any request got approved, got paid. Ridiculous. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's jump to the phones. Mark has been waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
Yeah, what the guy that was just started said his father was in a Nazi concentration camp.
Several of them, actually.
Did he mention anyone in particular?
Yeah, he was at Auschwitz. He was
Auschwitz. We have another one.
Yeah, he was also at Bergen-Belsen.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Theresienstadt.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Who is he? Did he mention who liberated the?
Good question. I don't know. I would love.
Was it the Russians?
Yeah.
Was it the Russian
or the
army?
Americans.
The Russian? Yeah, because they were either liberated by one or the other,
Yep.
the Russian Red Army or the USA Army.
Great question.
One or the other.
I didn't think to ask that. I will talk to him.
Nobody ever does. But anyways, this USA aid. I knew nothing about it until the Trumpster brought it up. And they don't talk about it on the mainstream media, because they just don't. But I've been hearing on it on alternative, on the radio and everything else. And holy mackerel, you talk about a global scam. I mean, holy mackerel. It was like a taxpayer, U.S. taxpayer slush fund.
It was.
For every tin pot dictator around the world. And you know what? The best part of it, there was little or no U.S. government oversight.
None.
They were just throwing this.
They were cowboys.
Tens of millions of dollars, like wooden nickels.
Yep.
Mark, it was even worse than that. USAID, which has nothing to do with foreign aid, it has everything to do with projecting American interests overseas, was a laundry for special interests in the government. I really find it difficult to believe that even Hamas could use millions of dollars worth of condoms. Where did the rest of the money go?
Well, okay, thank you for the call, Mark. The thing about that is that money, when you have that much money moving around and you have 99% of the people who work in that department are clearly Democrats because they donated to Democratic candidates. I gave you the numbers between the 241,000 plus that went to Kamala, the $999 that went to Trump. You have to start wondering, and I'm liking this to NGOs, and I brought up NGOs, and for those who aren't up on that, non-government organizations. I talked about this years ago, that all these NGOs that were being popped up, that they're going to get government money, and that's how they funnel money to these organizations, including Catholic charities and legitimate organizations. And that's how they're funding. When you see this caravan coming through South America and they have the Biden-Harris shirts on, and they're riding in chartered buses, and they have sneakers that most of us can't afford to buy our kids, and knapsacks and clean clothes and all this, you have to say, well, who's coordinating this? Who's funding this? They're NGOs, which is just your tax money laundered through a process. This is another way to launder taxpayer money to causes, but you have to. And I'm glad they shuttered this thing and shut it down, froze out the computers, because I'd like an audit done. And how much of this money, of taxpayer money, got sent to organizations or disappeared en route somewhere, or went to organizations connected to maybe members of the government. And God help the politician that has some kind of hand in this.
Well, it explains how a lot of these politicians enter the political business broke.
And multimillionaires by their third term, if not sooner. Yeah. Look at AOC. I would like to, never mind Trump's taxes. I want to see Nancy Pelosi's. I want to see the Clintons. Well, Barack Obama, we kind of saw all the public, like $40-something million, deal with Netflix and all that. Now I'm hearing Joe Biden's next chapter is he wants to do something in Hollywood. He must be jealous of that payday from Netflix. I don't know. But this isn't over. Now the left is trying to say that Elon is taking over the government. It's so stupid when you hear this, because it's as if, even as a sitting member of Congress, you don't understand how our government works. Elon doesn't have the power. I mean, Trump had to say, no, he's not. He doesn't have the ability to. He doesn't have the authority to. And he's working on behalf of the president of the United States. And he's doing exactly what we knew was going to happen. We put Trump back in office. And the one thing that you can take out of this, thank God, is when we are absolutely derailed, when we're absolutely a train wreck, we do fix it. And we fixed it on this election. And look at a couple of weeks in office, the amount of change that already has happened is absolutely incredible. And that brings me, before I have to wrap up today, that this Trump administration's ongoing efforts to reshape federal government, well, it's taken a major turn with the voluntary buyout program that has already led to the resignation of approximately 20,000 federal workers. So the initiative, designed to reduce the size of the federal workforce and cut long-term costs, of course, because we have it, health coverage, days off, medical, retirement, has sparked both praise and, of course, controversy. Well, proponents argue it's a necessary step towards efficiency and accountability. Critics see it as a political purge aimed at replacing career civil servants with ideological loyalists. You know, when I was young, my mother, nice Irish woman, she believed in working for a company 40, 50 years, getting the gold watch, getting the pension, and all of that goes with it. She was pushing me to the post office or something. And when I went into real estate as a young guy, oh my goodness, you don't get paid unless you sell something? That was beyond her. No, you should go to the post office. And she would always say, go to work for government. And back in those days, she said, you don't make a lot as you make in a private sector, but it's security, job security, and you got a good retirement. Now, lo and behold, fast forward to today, government jobs pay very well. There are a lot of six-figure jobs in the federal government, right? G14, G15, G16, incredible health coverage, and great retirement. And when I went into a business that was all driven on just performance, merit, and commission driven, that she didn't know what to do with herself. So I could afford to send them to Ireland for vacation. Then she wasn't so happy when I wanted to leave real estate. But the White House offer allows federal employees to resign immediately while continuing to receive pay and benefits through September 30th. This measure is part of a broader strategy to streamline government and force stricter return to office policies. That's the other part that's killing me. You were hired to work in an office. Pandemic hits, and now you act as though that's ridiculous to ask me to show up at work. And this is to reduce the reliance on remote work. Come back to work. If you moved during the pandemic, that's kind of on you. And the administration initially aimed for a 5 to 10% reduction in federal personnel, a figure that could translate into hundreds of thousands of departures if widely accepted. But as of now, only about 1% of federal workers has taken that offer. With the deadline, it's still open. They still have the ability to do it. But we got to wrap up Tuesday's show here, folks, on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Follow me at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. And back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock for the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Stay tuned. We got Frankie Boyer is coming up next. So pay attention to Frankie. I mean, every time I listen to her, I get to stop at the health food store. I realize I am not doing the right thing, man. All right, folks. Joe out.